say she lost her mind. They say she'll be just fine, but they lie. Love in springtime. They say she lost.
All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam aka Marf, and this is Marfoogle News. Today, we have a ton to go over in a short amount of time, but first, we're going to get right into why the rich are getting second passports. We've actually talked about this before, the golden passports. Golden passports is essentially when the rich are they're purchasing a certain amount of cash or money into a country where they allow them, because of the money they've spent in that country, to have a second citizenship. You can actually get dual citizenships in a country if you spend enough money. We actually showed you a list of kind of cheaper countries you could get one of these, but of course the cheaper countries are not the ones that you want to go to in an SHTF. In fact, some of the most expensive countries that you have to buy citizenship in are the ones that everybody wants to go to when the end of the world happens. So kind of crazy, but again, is this a sign that something is coming? We've talked about how Zuckerberg is literally building a $270 million mansion bunker and flying in food and prep and all of this stuff. And it's like he's got a deadline or something. You've got Elon Musk building rockets. And by the way, I just shared one of the videos he posted on a time lapse, and I believe it was a computer generated, but it was basically showing you actual launches and how they picked up over the years. And it shows you from, I think, like 2012, and then it's like one launch, and you see it launch, and it's time lapse through sunsets, and I think it's sunsets, but anyways, you see the time go by, and then it goes 10 launches, then 20 launches, then you're seeing it just every second they're launching a rocket, and it's really trippy. Now, of course, people are like, well, it's all of those Starlink, right? Well, it also shows the big friggin' rocket launch and all of these rocket launches, one after another. And it really puts it in perspective how much they've been launching. It even starts out on one pad, and then you see behind it is a second pad. And after that one starts going, then the second one starts going. And it goes through the dates and times that all of these launches are happening. And it's like, what the heck are they actually doing? Of course, you could say they're launching these Starlink satellites, this grid around the planet. But lots of folks have some pretty crazy theories on what might actually be happening right now. Now, as far as wealthy U.S. families are increasingly applying for second citizenships and national residences as a way to hedge their financial risk, according to a law firm. The wealthy are building these, quote, passport portfolios, collections of second and even third or fourth citizenships in case they need to flee their home country. Henley and Partners, a law firm that specializes in high net worth citizenships, said that Americans now outnumber every other nationality when it comes to securing alternative residences or added citizenships. It says the U.S. is still a great country. It is still an amazing passport, said Dominic Volek, group head of private clients in Henley. But if I'm wealthy, I would like to hedge against levels of volatility and uncertainty. The idea of diversification is well understood by wealthy individuals around what they invest. It makes no sense to have one country of citizenship and residence when I have the ability to actually diversify that aspect of my life as well. So it's crazy to me. We already covered over the last 3 or 4 years that this has been going up and up and up and up, but it has actually spiked and it has now shot up. And all of these people, also surprisingly, are getting not only a second passport like a backup plan, but a third backup plan and a fourth backup plan. It reminds me a lot of somebody I used to know that actually was somebody who worked not only military, they were the liaison between FEMA and the military, and they had to have not 3 but 4 active routes to where they had to go to work if a disaster happened. And I'm thinking, gosh, they're literally getting 4 different citizenship countries just in case. It's like, well, if it fails here and fails here, what are they expecting where they need 3 backups? Are they expecting that 3 of these places are going to have their entire financial system collapse? It's quite wild. To say the least, what do you think is going on? What do you think is coming our way? This is one day. In fact, right tomorrow, that new Civil War conflict movie is coming out. The one with Kirsten Dunst and everything else. People have been chattering about that for months now because a lot of folks think it's predictive programming of something that is near future. I think even one of the reviews by one of the big critics says a near future dystopian thing of extremely near future events. It's like, this is creepy. What are we living through, and why are all the rich trying to get the heck out? If not, why are they trying to have a backup plan for in case something goes down? Are they just being nervous, or do they know something? We'll talk about that tonight and much, much more on tonight's episode of Marfoogle TV. Nothing in this show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough.
They say she lost her mind. They say she'll be just fine, but they lie. Love in springtime. They say she lost her mind.
All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam A.K. Marf, and this is Marfoogle TV. Before we get started, and we're going to go over the map and get to the rest of the current events, I do want to say hello to everybody that made it to chat today, and thank you for joining us on today's lovely show. Now, let's bring in my co-host/internet brother, Dex James. What is going on, and how are you doing today?
Well, hello, Adam, and hello, Foogle fam. I'm doing just fine.
So, first of all, the golden passports, the wealthiest folks are not only buying one backup plan, but even 3 and 4. Does that not say that something is going on? Like, this isn't something that's a new thing, but it has all of a sudden picked up like crazy. Former Google CEO Eric Schmidt, you've got Sam Altman, you have all of these extremely rich and connected people essentially backing themselves up, almost like they're saving it to a hard drive, only it's their life.
It goes hand in hand with the bug out structures they're building, the locations, whether it be down in NZ or in Hawaii or other locations where they're planning. They know something's coming. So we have to look at that and really understand what does that mean to the rest of us, because these are folks that know how to hedge their money. They know how to deal with, big finances. They know what's coming and they get the inside information. So, in some regards, they're basically hedging their bets on America. They're saying, I don't necessarily trust it here, so I'm going to take my opportunities and make sure I've got a backup plan. Much like you might take your investment money out of one thing and spread it into a couple other things to hedge your bets. So, yeah, these folks, it's a sign. When you see them doing it, it's sort of like that's your early warning system, so to speak.
Oh, and then I think I made a mistake earlier. I said golden passport, but they call it golden visa, and they might call it golden passport too. But the golden visa is essentially spend a certain amount. They give a good example here. Before, we've used an example of like New Zealand. So some countries are as high as like $1.5 million. So you could literally buy a $1.5 million house there. That might apply. Otherwise, you might have to donate money. Some countries, you have to give it to the government as like a tax type of thing. Some countries, if you just buy enough property there, if you buy a farm there, you can do it. It's basically because you have put that amount of money into the local economy. they consider you, basically they're like, well, you're adding to our country. New Zealand, we actually covered how they were actually trying to go to their kind of Supreme Court and try to block people from getting citizenships there. Why is that even a thing, right? So many people were going to New Zealand, including, they give one example of Peter Thiel is going there. Of course, Eric Schmidt, all these other folks. And in fact, it says Peter Thiel, who added a citizenship in New Zealand, applied for citizenship in Cyprus. These people that did this, they're doing it with the thought that New Zealand will be one of the safest places in the world during an SHTF. And what's crazy is they're not called crazy. Any prepper is kind of put in this taboo place. Like if you're in a public at a party or something, if you're the prepper person, people have this stigma that you're nuts, that, oh, one of those kooky ones thinks that, oh, everything's going to go bad. It's more of a, if things do go bad, we're going to be prepared for it. That's the whole thing. Now, these golden visas that they're paying for, why are they zooming up at this time? And look at where gold is at right now. I have to remind you, gold is skyrocketing. Bitcoin is just crazy price right now. But gold is up to, what is it, 2370 or something like that. And it has gone down a couple bucks, but it just keeps going up. Every 3 days I've checked it, and it's up and up and up. And I've watched it since, like, just recently. It was not too long ago. It was like 17 or 1800. Now it's up to 2370. That's a huge jump. And when you look at how much money is actually in gold, that means that a giant amount of billions of dollars just went into gold. Why? Because gold is a good thing to put money into where it's going to hold value. So this is very, very creepy, to say the least. What do you guys think about it? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you had a country, if you could buy your way, if you had an extra $1 million and every country in the world was $1 million to buy a golden passport or a golden visa, where would you go? Where would your backup plan be? I'm sure a lot of people are going to say like Greenland or Antarctica, or probably not a lot of Antarcticas, but a lot of Icelands, Greenlands, New Zealands, Australias. But where would you go? List that in the comments down below or in the chat in the show. So, and we have U.S. intel warns of imminent Iranian strike on Israel. So once again, we have, quote, U.S. intel, and these intel drops somehow get leaked out, or they just straight up put them out. And some of the times they are kind of instantaneous. Some of the times they end up taking some time to actually come true. We talked about how Russia's event and everything that went down there a couple weeks ago. 2 weeks before that happened, the U.S. put out a warning to U.S. citizens. They said, hey, the embassy told U.S. citizens, hey, you need to be careful, and be careful if you go to certain venues. And they actually listed the exact venue, and that's the only venue they listed. They said, watch out at big gatherings and at specifically a certain type of hall when you go out to events. And they said it would be an imminent event in the next 48 hours. We waited 48 hours. We kept checking the clock. At 48 hours, I did an update. I'm like, well, nothing happened. But I said that doesn't mean that something isn't going to happen. 2 weeks later, one of the biggest events happened. And of course, already people have forgotten. Now they're saying that U.S. intel is warning of an imminent Iranian strike into Israel. So no matter what side you're on whatever debate that's going on here, the U.S. intel is saying this. So if you're on the side that you think a 3-letter agency is going to be involved and it's going to be a fantastic Freddy, or that it is legit and this is going to happen, or if you think it's just bad information and they're just trying to scare somebody, I don't know. This doesn't scare the United States. It should, though, because we will almost immediately get involved if something like this happens at the right level. Dex, do you want to talk about the JB administration believes that there is going to be this event?
Certainly, this new report came out from one of the media outlets, and they are basically saying from the intel that's from the JB administration that the strike is imminent. More specifically, they say the attack could come in the form of missiles or drone strikes against different government sites, Israeli government sites. The attack could come from Iran, or it could come from the proxies region in the area. Now, we know that there's been a huge buildup and ramp up since October with the proxy group in the north, which would be in Lebanon there, the Hezbollah organization, which is funded by and directed by Iran. So it makes a lot of sense to see them potentially use the organizations that they have around the Middle East, but it also could actually come directly from Iran. I mean, they take this as a pretty serious offense to them. So they may actually want to signal its significance by doing something themselves.
And they made it's kind of a quote that almost made you think the opposite. They said, well, maybe we won't be so hasty or something like that. We covered it yesterday or the day before. But at the same time, they said that there will be a response to this event, that this is not going to go, unseen. And what was crazy is I noticed yesterday, the same general that was talking about a regional war, wants to get this thing started, that was the same picture, the same gentleman, one of the people that at the funeral of two of the generals out of the 7 people that perished in that embassy hit, that was the same guy who was bawling, crying at the funeral. So, what does that say? The guy, if it's truly what it looks like, he is extremely sad about losing a friend or something, and this guy wants revenge. And it's not like it doesn't match up with what they're publicly saying. They want revenge. But is this all part of a bigger plan? Is this all part of a bigger plan that they do not have empathy for human beings, and that human beings are going to be involved on a grand scale? A World War III event would profit certain people. And just remember, all of these people building their $270 million mansions, they're building it with the knowledge that they're not going to, none of these events are going to happen without them getting a heads up. I love how Leave the World Behind puts it when the guy is explaining. If you haven't seen that movie, go watch it. He goes, what if it isn't, run by a secretive group of people? Maybe the best you could hope for is just a heads up. Well, a heads up would be huge. Think about if you were told before an event happened, first of all, when it happens, where it's going to happen, and be able to plan accordingly. Think about it. We know this happens. In fact, politicians, when all the CV stuff was going on, they just happened to all sell their stocks right before certain events happened. It's like, come on, we know these people get heads up. And those people aren't billionaires. They might be multi-millionaires. But we're talking about the people that are running corporations that are literally controlling the planet. That they're not, multinational, like they're in Europe or they're in the U.S. They're across the planet. We're talking about Zuckerberg. Facebook is almost everywhere on the planet that it's legal. If not, they own other companies that are. Look at X and Twitter. Elon Musk is doing this now. He owns that. Before that, he owned Tesla, which was, selling cars all over the world. Of course, SpaceX, all of these companies that Elon owns, he's connected with all of these government agencies. You think he doesn't know a thing or two about what's about to go down? Yeah, I wonder if it's public what kind of security clearance he has. But you wonder. And then Zuckerberg, he has been talked to by some of these tall, super, super high up security clearance people, because he's constantly working alongside law enforcement and all these things with the social media companies. All of them are. Of course, a lot of that's been exposed. So what do you think is about to happen with this strike? And do you think that this is going to be kind of the bigger one, or do you think it will be a smaller strike and just kind of get the ball to continue rolling? And then Iran's leader says 4 threatening words. 4 threatening words to Israel blast the U.S. and West for disaster in the Strip. Iran's leader on Wednesday threatened to take action against Israel during a prayer ceremony. He also criticized the U.S. and the West for their involvement amid tensions in the region. The supreme leader, Ayatollah, Ali Khamenei spoke at a prayer ceremony celebrating the end of the holy month of Ramadan. And this is what I was talking about. The March 10th to April 9th was Ramadan. It's a month of fasting, and it is considered one of their sacred holidays or sacred traditions or sacred events. Now, as far as this goes, it is detested by almost a majority of all of the leaders that there should not be violence during Ramadan. That just ended. That's why it ended on the 9th. The solar eclipse, which millions of people gathered for, everybody was worried because the FBI, the DHS, everybody's telling us that the chatter is worse than it was during 2001. That the April 8th was, of course, really hyped up because people were like, well, there's millions of people gathering in tiny areas, and if you did want to do a lot of damage, you would pick an event like that. But there's other events that are happening very soon that even more people are going to be gathering up. So again, I think that they are very patient, and whether it is planned, orchestrated, or it is legit, something bigger is being planned here. Heck, it might have taken years to plan. Heck, it might have taken years of moving people into the country. You never know. I mean, this could be a super long-term plan to do something big. But as far as the after the speech, promised to retaliate against Israel, saying it will be punished. Those are the 4 words. That's it. It will be punished. For an airstrike that demolished Iran's consulate in Syria earlier this month. In his remarks, Khamenei said the strike, which left several generals perished, was, quote, wrongdoing and akin to an attack on Iran itself. It says, when they attacked our consulate area, it was like, and I apologize here, it was like they attacked our territory. The evil regime must be punished, and it will be punished. So they're not clapping and jumping up and down in joy. So we will again update you on any little thing that ends up happening. And if something crazy happens in the next few days, which a lot of folks are hyped up about the next couple days, we'll of course cover it no matter what time it is. So we'll let you know. And then Life is Better on Stilts. Thank you over on DLive. Thank you, Rizzo312. Thank you for popping in to DLive as well. We have, of course, Priscilla R. Thank you, and thank you. Let's see here. Over on YouTube, thank you, Quintris. I appreciate that. Says, I'm officially a network cable specialist and NCS. Let's see here. NCS, network cable specialist, and NCS copper, NCS fiber optics with an OSHA certification. I'm waiting to receive all of them. Well, congratulations, Quintris. Sounds like that was a lot of work to do. And then Grace for you too. Thank you so much. I appreciate that for supporting before the show even started, it looks like. And then Domenico Lavara, Gen X Josh, and Swetnam Ministries. Thank you, everybody that was in the show before it even started. And thank you guys for all of you that poured it over from Marfoogle News. Now, before we move on, remember, if you do want to protect yourself against an EMP, we have a great resource for you. It's one of the biggest threats from any of the adversaries, including Iran, Russia, North Korea. All of them have the ability, including China, have a super EMP weapon. It is one of the most likely because it will not actually take life itself. It will take our grid down. And without our grid, they say 90% of us could perish in the first year. That's not because we're taking each other out and it's like a replay of Civil War. That is because of water. All of the water supplies and everything else, the gas pumps, everything will go down. Without power, we do not have our critical infrastructure. Without critical infrastructure, we are really screwed. On top of that, an EMP or a solar event from the sun would knock out cars and would knock out grid as far as that goes. So you would not be able to travel from point A to point B. If you work far from home, this is definitely a smart idea. It's very easy to put in. You don't need to be a mechanic. It is incredibly simple. You wire red to red on your battery, black to black on your battery, and green to ground to part of your frame, and then bolt it into the engine block. It's that easy. It takes 10 minutes. Anybody can do it. And then it will ground the signal of either multiple EMP strikes or a Carrington-level event from the sun in less than 500 trillionths of a second. Go over to marfooglenews.com/EMP and make sure to use the code MARF. You'll save $50 off per device, which basically breaks down to per car or per home or per radio or per generator, and it will help our channel at the same time. We're in an uphill battle, especially this year, all the way up until November. So if you want to help us more than anything, though, share our stuff out. Share our show with anybody and everybody you meet that you think would value this show. We appreciate everybody that's new here, and we really do thank you for being here. All right, and that's marfooglenews.com/EMP. It's 100% made in America. Go check it out. Same companies dealing with DHS and DOD and the Demso team with the Texas Grid. Dex, Philadelphia ends of Ramadan event. There was immediately a bang event with 3 injured and 5 arrested.
Yeah. So, this is not, we don't know how connected this is to the actual event that was there. All we understand is that this actually happened. And the description given by the police was there were about 1,000 people gathered. This was during a specific 3-day period that happens right after Ramadan, which is sort of another holy holiday that celebrates the ending of Ramadan. And they were that was the reason for the gathering. The police were writing a ticket nearby, and they heard the shots ring out, and then they saw 2 different groups firing at one another. Now, it's still not clear if it was people in that, but the whole point is this was happening right there at that location. It could be part of it. It may not be part of it. And they have sent in ATF and FBI to help do more investigation, understand what exactly went down. Some people have perished. 5 people were arrested. So I'm sure they'll get to the bottom of it, and we'll learn more if this was just, some other activity that happened to be happening right next to them at the same time, or if this was something that was happening towards people that were at that event. We don't know. The reason it's important is because we talk about how important this religious holiday is and how it was coming to a close, and that a lot of people are divided right now around the incidents that are going on in the Middle East. And we know that this type of situation can get really hot really quick, and this is not the kind of thing you want to see happening on the streets of any city in America, but this did happen today.
By the way, isn't that a symbol? Isn't that that looks like a playground or something right next to the church, or to the what is it called? The Clara Muhammad Square. But isn't that a symbol of some sort? You can see it from the sky, but you can't even see it from there. That's just a playground. But isn't that a known symbol? I feel like it is. Anyways, and then Mark Fragola says gold isn't gaining value. The dollar is losing value. Very much so, yeah. People, and that also when people pull out of cash and put it into gold, and that is also a sign. And then Amarillo Gun Runners says keep it up. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And then Kara Fuse says scripture pulled for show. If you remain in me and my words, and you ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. John 15:7. Thank you, Kara Fuse. And New York, thank you for subscribing. Steve, thank you for subscribing. Cable Man, thank you for subscribing. I think you're the second Cable Man that we have. Schaefer Girl, thank you so much. Sissy Jean, Alan Brooks, thank you for becoming a member. And Tactical Tracker, thank you for subscribing. I appreciate that, and thank you for joining us. Tropical, thank you for subscribing. Neil Nelson, Cowboy Jesus, thank you for subscribing. Andrew Shop, Reed Dwyer, and Polly Medina, thank you for becoming a member. Appreciate that. And then out of Iran, the international, the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy. I'll have to read it. I can't memorize it here. The International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, inspectors returning from a visit of Iran's nuclear facility warned Wednesday that Tehran is on a fast track towards bomb making. So one thing I feel like is like this has been said for so freaking long. Dex, I know that they've gone back and forth, and they also have changed it. They've changed it slightly. They're like, well, by this time they'll be able to make 6 bombs per month, or now they have enough of this at 60%, or this much at 80%. I guess. Didn't you think that they would already have just straight up nuclear bombs by now? And what is the deal with all of this? But now,
well, if they did, would we know?
That's what I'm saying. Like, wouldn't you think that they would already have secret nuclear weapons? Like, I guess why can they detect it from space? Like, how do they know that they don't have it if last year they said that they were at the right amounts and that they had enough percentages of this and that to actually make it? Or they said within 12 days. Do you remember we covered stuff that was like within 12 days they'll have enough to make, a bomb a month or something? And now we're still seeing this stuff. Now they're saying that they believe that the Fordow facility, nestled in a mountain, is essentially going to be booming up, and that they're going to make bombs with it. To me, it seems odd.
Well, it's already. I guess the point is it's been booming up, and it seems to me, for starters, they have a facility that's designed to do this, so we know what they're doing. So they are enriching and intentionally enriching, and they've been stockpiling. So at some point, they're going to use it if they haven't already. I think it's kind of. I'm guessing that maybe in the past some of those numbers were like, okay, well, based on the production level, they may have a certain amount that they could then be able to pull the highly reactive stuff out of. But those days have long gone, and those stockpiles are getting bigger and bigger. So I think they either already have it, and we just don't know how much they have. The question is, have they put it into something yet?
I think it's weird, this picture. I was zooming out. I thought like maybe they had to get it from an external source and add it to Google. Like the color looks like sepia almost. I don't know if that's because everything's dead within range of this thing. But what are all of these like marks and these dots? It made me think of like if you see the old films of the nuclear plant, Chernobyl, all of the videos taken back then had these weird lines and fuzz, and they say that's because it was because of the nuclear, the radiation would affect the film. It even affects digital cameras where it gives a fuzz. So I thought of that. I know that's not why. It's probably certain landmarks in the mountain or the kind of dirt it is or something. But isn't that a weird color? Like, we show a lot of the Earth satellite photos, but it literally looks like sepia. Remember to thank your mods. Make sure to go over to marfooglenews.com/friends. We have so many awesome people here. Again, make sure to drop an M in the chat right now for your mods. Thanks, Jammer. Make sure to go check out Bones, Chance, CJ, Jammer, Lisa, Rip Curl, RJL, Ilea, of course, Trinity, Red or Blue Pill, Hi-Ho, Kermit the Frog here, and Wages World. Wages has been covering all of the crazy solar events, so make sure to go check that out. They have not stopped. And then, Dex, do you want to go over Israel threatens to strike Iran directly if Iran launches attack from its territory? Oh, did we lose you?
Oh, no, I'm back. Sorry. I had a technical glitch. Yes. So look, last night we talked about somebody with knowledge from the Ministry of Defense, or not Ministry of Defense, but from the planning that's going on in Israel's defense side, saying, hey, they're going to be looking to target the nuke facilities. And they're going, and if they're attacked, they're going to do that. They're going to strike back with that location. Well, now what we have is the actual foreign minister coming out, so an official from the government, not just some hearsay with inside knowledge, saying, "Yeah, we are going to strike the proper country of Iran if they strike us from their land." So they're admitting now that they will target them. They didn't say necessarily the nuke facilities, but we know that is top on their list. It's their number one priority. They've claimed over and over again they do not want to see Iran have nuclear capabilities. So that's sort of a given in my opinion. But now we're getting the official word from officials in Israel saying that they will strike if they're struck from Iran's land. Now, if it comes from one of the surrogates or T groups that are supported by them, then maybe that's a different story, and maybe they won't. I don't know. This is just getting the words are flying, and everybody knows something's got to happen. It's just a matter of how long is Iran going to hold out. They tend to be patient. They tend to wait and use surprise. They're not quick to jump. So that's what we said last night. I know the current administration is saying it's imminent, like it's going to happen any moment now. But we heard imminent from them with the event in Russia, and it took over a week and a half after that for it to actually happen. So we'll see. We'll see how much longer this is going to take. I would be if I was a betting person, I would absolutely bet that there will be a retaliation. I just don't know when.
Now, let me hear from the chat, and we'll have chat replay for those of you that are watching the replay tomorrow morning. If you're having your coffee with the show, thank you. But can you guys list some reasons? First of all, there's also biblical things happening here. There's prophecies from hundreds of years of different angles of prophecies that are now kind of aligning right now. There are many that absolutely believe everything that's going on in the Middle East is something that was predicted. Can you name some examples of why this is lining up? I think it would be very helpful for people to see it. I can't articulate it enough. I'm not that up on all of the biblical prophecies, but I would love for some of you that are to list it. Why do you think that this is going to pop off? I have heard so many times over the last 5 or 6 days, so many examples. Now, of course, all of the stuff with the third temple and the red heifer and all of these things that are going on right now. And, of course, the scriptures, straight out of scriptures, that these countries would all align and nation against nation and country against country, or nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom would rise. Famines and earthquakes in various places. And now look at what we're covering right now. It's just nuts. Let me know in the chat below. And then JB administration preparing to prevent Americans from using Russian-made software over national security concern. So is this the start? Is this the Red Scare 2.0 type of thing? A lot of folks are already saying that in the next few years, we are going to be cutting out China and Russia out of our country. JB himself even did a speech saying, soon we'll be back to everything is made in America. That was I bet you later on, 20 years from now, that will end up being a historic speech. And it's not because he's this great hero of a president, but that's probably how history will write it in. He did this speech that said, everything will be back to made in America. I took that as, okay, that means it's not going to be made in China. Kind of seemed to me. And then that same very speech, do you think it was a coincidence that they said that had the guy from Intel stand up and say, yeah, we're going to be making all of the semiconductor chips here? That almost says like, yeah, well, they're going to take Taiwan, but we're going to have our own chips. Don't worry, you guys. It's like they're expecting that China and Russia are going to decouple from the U.S. I mean, it's not like they don't expect it. It's been obvious. They've been stating this. Russia and China are trading land right now, and they've already done this, and they are getting things from each other that they were getting from the U.S. So, and we've covered this. The stats even prove this. China has gotten a record low set of imports from the U.S. They have exported record lows to the U.S., and then, of course, with Russia, obviously there's been companies left and right closing down. They're totally disconnecting from that. But at the same time, China. All of this is happening. And now they're saying that they're preparing to take the unusual step of issuing an order that would prevent U.S. companies and citizens from using software made by a major Russian cybersecurity firm because of national security concerns. 5 U.S. officials familiar with the matter told CNN. I also notice, and I will not forget to mention, that CNN always gets these super exclusives. Now, it does make sense because CNN is aligned with the current administration, and I bet you they're way more likely to have a certain staff tell a certain reporter over another one, whereas it was reversed for the last president. But as far as this goes, it's like CNN always comes out with this crazy, the craziest exclusives. And it makes you think, like, why is this even being said, or why is this even being done? Now, this makes sense, but is there anything behind this? U.S. government agencies are already banned from using Kaspersky Lab software, but action to prevent private companies from using software would be unprecedented. So basically telling companies all over the country, saying, no, you can't use that, deciding what they can or cannot use. It's a big step. And then, Dex, do you want to talk about Assange? Prosecution may be thrown out by the U.S., JB says. And this is something from the president.
Yeah, so the U.S. president says that they are considering dropping its prosecution against WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. The Australian 52 faces charges in America over an alleged to obtain and disclose national defense information. The charges were brought after the release of hundreds of thousands of documents, which we all know, going back to covering things in Afghanistan and Iraq. When Biden was asked by a reporter on Wednesday if the U.S. would drop the prosecution, he said, "We're considering it." So I think there's also been some other pressure from Australia and other locations asking him to do that. So we may see that is part of something that may come forward. And I know a lot of people are in favor of this. There's a lot of people that want to see him be freed, and there's probably just as many, or maybe at least a decent subset of people that think he should be prosecuted and treat him like a criminal. So what do you think? Let us know in the comments down below.
I know I'm also torn. Like, people were torn on Edward Snowden, but I don't know how life would be if I didn't find out about what Edward Snowden brought out to the public. I think that many of us found the information that Snowden put out. Again, one of the other whistleblowers / secret info guys. It's like, if we didn't find out about some of this stuff, do you think a lot of people wouldn't have woke up if they didn't? That was the biggest event where I'm sure millions of people woke up to the fact that, whoa, they were really, really lying. Like, they're bad, and they're disturbingly involved and disturbingly surveilling us through every which way, including our TVs, cameras, phones, everything else. Heck, now it's so widely accepted. You can go into Target or Best Buy, and it's just accepted that we have little camera covers that you can slide the little camera on either your laptop or even your phone. It's like, instead of everybody out in the street protesting, like, stop videotaping us on our private cell phones, people are like, oh, well, we'll just cover up our camera. And it's like, that's a normal thing here. Doesn't that kind of mind boggle people that, this kind of stuff has been put out and nobody really there was no justice for it. And on top of that, they have been all over the world trying to hide from the U.S. As far as Julian Assange, imagine. So after all of this, after staying in the hotel or whatever, the place he was staying at for years and all of this craziness, watch, they say, oh, we're going to drop the charges. And then watch something happen to him. A lot of folks are concerned about that. He's already had several weird events happen, so we've covered most all of them. Before we move,
Australia is trying to get him back, by the way.
yeah, I know it's like,
Yeah, they want him back in Australia. At least that's what they're saying. Not for prosecution, but that's and it's interesting because I think we've got the whole AUKUS stuff going on between trying to build the Pacific Alliance. I wonder how much influence that played. If they said, "Hey, part of all the stuff you want us to do with you, why don't you do what we've been asking?" Because the Prime Minister's been asking for Assange for a long time.
yeah, and the AUKUS deal, which of course caused a wedge between us and France. It did end up making us extremely close with Australia, and Australia has also kind of been. I guess Australia has actually been on a good side of things several times, like when Australia didn't let Xi's country off the hook during the whole CV thing. They're like, hey, we want to send in people that aren't related to the three-letter W and the H and the O. We want to send in a third party, and they were like, no. In fact, we're going to add tariffs to your exports and your imports. It was like they basically punished them for asking questions, right? So Australia's been on a good side of a few things lately, but before we move on, if you don't have any backup food, we have a great resource for you. My Patriot Supply has freeze-dried food that will last 25 years. It's very efficiently packed. Freeze-dried takes all of the moisture and air and everything out, so it compacts the food, and when you want to eat it, you just cut it open. You either cook, or you add water, and it brings back almost all of the original flavor, and it saves a whole lot more of the nutrients in the food. Not to mention, it is one of the best ways to preserve food, lasting up to 25 years. This food will be good upwards of 2053. So past in the 2050s, you'll be able to eat this food safely and chow down on it. Now, think about how much food has gone up in the last couple years. Think about how inflation has gone in the last 3 years. The price of freeze-dried food has tripled in just the last 4 years now. Think about in another 5 years from now, even if it's tripled again, you will still have 20 years left on the shelf, and you'll have a base covered as far as 3 months of food. Now, this is another good thing for easy math. If you get a 3-month supply of food, that's a month of food for 3 people, a month and a half or 6 weeks food for 2. Or again, you can end up getting more. You can get smaller supplies too. They have a month supply. They have kits. They have a 72-hour kit if you just need something for your go bag. Go over and check it out, marfooglenews.com/prep. It comes with a wide variety of foods, and it is one of the most affordable ways to do freeze-dried. We also have other brands that we recommend, so make sure to go check out some of our other affiliates as well. There's different things for different needs, so make sure to go check it out. This is our recommendation for the most bang for your buck. That's marfooglenews.com/prep. And then we have U.S. and Japan boost defense ties with eyes on China. So we told you about this over the last couple of weeks, and we actually told you that this was going to happen. We were all kind of placing bets on what would end up happening here. So Dex, what ended up going down with this whole announcement? All these big announcements.
So they said they're vowing to strengthen the defense cooperation. The plans were announced by JB and Fumio Kishida during the visit that was going on today.
Get your bingo cards out.
Yeah. The expanded air defense network incorporating Australia now. So they're going to have an air defense network between Japan, the U.S., and Australia. They also announced that and we'd heard about this rumored before, but the Japanese astronaut will officially be joining the NASA Artemis program and to put people on the moon, and the astronaut will become the first non-American on the moon's surface. So I think there's probably a few more things that may come out of this. I'm sure there's a lot that they've discussed and we won't know anything about. But unilateral attempts to change the status quo by force or coercion is absolutely unacceptable wherever it may be, and Mr. Kishida said regarding the Russian aggression of UKR. UKR today, maybe East Asia tomorrow, he added. So again, we're hearing this rhetoric about creating a similar alliance or a similar pact throughout the Pacific area as NATO has throughout Europe and North America.
And
So I think we'll see that continue to grow.
And Israel had a really close relationship as far as weapons manufacturing back and forth. It just seems crazy to me that they're basically threatening to say, well, we're not going to support you, and we might separate a bunch from you, or we might take a step back from you. At the same time, they're stepping closer with Japan. This is a defense tie. We talked about this. We called, and my prediction, I forget, our predictions kind of lined up, Dex. I don't think you predicted anything different. But we predicted that there would be stronger defense ties, that there would be financial ties, which is also there with this, and there's even iconic ties. This was our enemy in World War II, and now they're going to be one of our closest allies. They're going to be directly involved in a World War III scenario. Japan and the U.S. are going to be fighting side by side. That's kind of crazy to think about. When in World War II, our last World War, we had Japanese in internment camps here in the U.S. We had Pearl Harbor, one of the most infamous events of our history, was Japan. And now we have a new enemy, and now Japan is going to be on our side, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, heck, I've talked to quite a few of the veterans, and they said Japan was an enemy they respected. There was a lot less respect for the NAZIs, but a lot of folks, a lot of veterans, even if they didn't like the Japanese, they respected them. They said that they fought tooth and nail, that these guys were no joke. I mean, one guy said that that these guys, you take one of these guys, he said that these guys are the kinds of guys that they would be the smallest guy in the room, and they would go up against 5 guys and they would win. The pure grit of these guys. So I thought it was pretty cool, considering they were on opposite side. These were their enemies, but they still respected them. And the Japanese said the same thing about in certain battles the U.S. The U.S. veterans were tough as nails. So pretty cool part of history now. Kind of, is this a closure for a lot of that? Like, now they're going to be our ally. It's kind of nuts. Dex, go ahead.
And it doesn't stop here. We also have another meeting with Kishida and Philippines President Ferdinand Marcos with JB at Capitol Hill. They're going to be participating in a 3-way meeting, and that takes place tomorrow. So we may see some more news come out of this as it relates to the focus on China and defense and whatnot. By the way, they're having a fancy dinner tonight for him with musician Paul Simon there to perform. Must be nice.
Spartus Koya says, I'm not 100% sure that your modern car is completely EM-proof. No, most modern cars are the opposite. Older cars are EMP-proof. If you have an old enough car, when you press the gas, there was an actual wire that would release the gas into the gas tank. I'm not a mechanic, but there were certain things like that where it was manual. Now everything has been digitized to where it doesn't put gas in unless a digital computer tells it so. Heck, if your car doesn't run right just because of a stupid computer chip, if you've ever had to go in and get your car, if it doesn't run correctly because of a computer part, then you know your car's probably on the list that needs EMP protection. I would think that would be a safe way to put it. But yeah, I don't think it, other than like the Resnavir, the 400,000 tank, there's not too many cars. Maybe the Tesla truck is EMP proof. I would assume it is, since it's bulletproof. But besides that, I don't think there's too many EMP proof cars off of the line.
I doubt it.
Yeah. And everything is computerized now, to the point, look at how many things the cars have now that are absolutely tied in with the computers. Half of the even lower end cars have self-driving features and radar brakes and self-driving capabilities. Not like self-driving, but self-braking, like it will automatically brake, it will automatically drive, advanced cruise control, that kind of stuff. South China Sea, U.S. Coast Guard says boardings of Chinese fishing vessels in South Pacific legal. So they just set a precedent. They just said, hey, this is actually going to be legal. And this makes a difference, because this is like, okay, how is this going to be taken by China? The Coast Guard is saying that they're going to be, that they're declaring it's legal for us to board these Chinese fishing vessels, which, mind you, 12,000 out of their giant navy, we believe, are fishing vessels that have militia on them. I just want to point that out. I think they call it their shadow navy, but China has a huge percentage, a huge chunk of these maritime boats, these fishing vessels, that even from a satellite photos, they have these trawler bars on the side to make them look like fishing boats. And this is due to, if they look like a fishing boat, if by appearance they are a fishing boat, they can turn their transponders off. They actually do this because of a loophole that they are able to kind of sneak around. That's why I think they call them the Shadow Navy. But those same boats are equipped with pop-out 50 cals right on their thing, and they're armed by what do you call it? Unmarked militia. So that's part of it. So if they get on the wrong fishing vessel, they could get some army or militia guys. Dex, I mean, this is, what's your prediction on what China will do when, do you think they're going to respond and say absolutely not?
Well, it's interesting, because this is in response to an incident last month. So the U.S. Coast Guard rejected the comments by the Chinese diplomat that its recent boardings of Chinese fishing boats in the Pacific Islands alongside the local police are illegal. So they were saying that the joint patrols, at the behest of the Pacific nation to protect coastal fisheries, we boarded, I think, 6 Chinese fishing boats, or 6 Chinese fishing boats were found to be violating Vanuatu's fishery laws. And after being inspected, the police who were on board the first U.S. Coast Guard boat to patrol the waters of the Pacific Island nation, they actually boarded 2 Chinese fishing boats during that time. So China was very upset, saying that it's illegal, they can't do it. And now the Coast Guard's going, nope, it's not illegal, we're going to keep doing it, and if we need to. So I think if this continues to happen, it put it in the bank of everything that we keep saying of the escalation in the South China Sea. It's just adding up and adding up and adding up, and we're getting closer and closer and closer to that tipping point where it gets kinetic. I mean, when you see the U.S. Coast Guard boarding Chinese fishing vessels, that's a big deal.
Backass Weirds World, thank you for being here, and I saw your comment. Says, seems to me they'll open the door for Xi's country when they get here. I get what you're trying to say, and I secretly agree too. I think there's people on the inside that would completely open up the back door, metaphorically and physically. What else explains the giant jump in military-age men coming through without families that are doing weird traditions right when they cross over? I mean, it's creepy. It's the movie. It's the movie we just compared current history to. Only it's, instead of Russia, it's the other way. That's what many people believe is happening right now. And then where NATO has an enhanced forward presence. This actually talks about on Monday, Germany sent an advanced team of 20 soldiers to Lithuania, laying the groundwork for a recently discussed establishment of a permanent brigade in the NATO country. It says, according to the Dushwell reporting, the 5,000-strong strike force called Panzer Brigade 45 is said to become fully operational by 2027. The brigade will support the already existing so-called NATO enhanced forward presence in the Baltic country, which, in contrast to Panzer Brigade 45, rotates its personnel regularly and personnel regularly, and is made up of soldiers from Germany, Belgium, Czechia, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands, Norway, and the United States as of December 2023. Now, if you remember, we actually covered that they have changed things now to the point where they are going to be putting these troops in place beforehand, and that they changed it so to where instead of NATO responding, they would actually already have troops into place. And when we heard about this, we said, okay, this is like they're already lining up for a war. And this actually shows kind of a simple map of where NATO already has an enhanced forward presence. And of course, they give it a nice, polite name like enhanced forward presence. But if you look at what has been being talked about in the videos that have been coming out in Europe of all of the tanks and everything that's being moved around, they're digging trenches, and they say it's all for major drills. The largest drill in history is going on, and it's been going on for a long time now, over these months. And now they already have massive, massive areas. If you look at this, this is kind of the negative map of UKR and Georgia, Moldova. I think that's Georgia down there. But you see all of these places, it's like a wall of NATO. And they are straight up posting up on all of the borders. And they are putting up troops already. We talked about how places like Romania are setting up hundreds of miles of these trenches. You've got Poland putting in dragon's teeth tank stoppers on all of the things. They're closing their border entrances to certain countries. In fact, I think it was like from 12 to 4, then 4 to 1 in places like Poland. So it appears by all public appearances, they're moving tanks around, they're moving gear and equipment around, they're placing and emplacing troops. It looks like they're setting up for World War III, does it not? I mean, look at that map. Dex, wouldn't you? And this is kind of crazy how this lines up. It is a wall of NATO. What else would you call that?
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, we're reinforcing, we're moving. Yeah, I mean, look, I know it may sound like a very small amount, but an advanced team or a special force team going to Lithuania from Germany, that's a big deal. And the fact that they're, going to ramp that up to, 5,000 strong, that's another big deal.
Well, also we read that article that talks about the strength of a special forces team compared to regular troops. They kind of look at it like, I forget what the comparisons were, but they said if you sent in 6 Navy SEALs, it's almost like sending in 400 men or something. It's the equivalent because the skills and the stuff that they can do, the abilities they have, the equipment that they can use, all of the stuff, they can be equivalent of the manpower of like 400 people. It was something crazy like that. Basically, these certain soldiers, when they put them in, these guys are so incredibly trained up and they have so many different skills and things at their disposal that they can do a lot of damage. You're talking about small teams like this can go in and change a regime out in a country. You're talking about small guys like this can go into a building of 300 bad guys, set up everything, take them all out in nighttime, and come out the morning after, and they might have lost one guy. It's that kind of thing. So this definitely is something to pay attention to. And then Russia's GPS meddling in the Baltic Sea demands NATO action, Sweden's naval chief said. So there's more evidence that the GPS is getting screwed with in all of these areas. They've been talking about this for quite a while. This has been affecting civilians in different parts of Europe. In parts of Europe, civilians are all of a sudden saying, oh, there's just no GPS. It's quite wild. Like, even when we lose internet and cell phone service and stuff like that, most places here in the United States will still have GPS. Like, even if you can't make a call, most of the time GPS will pick up in your car and you'll be able to get to point A to point B. But they are actually having kind of the reverse, where GPS is going down all over the place. And they're saying that it's now heavily affecting not only flights and things like this, but it's affecting civilians. Months of Russian GPS spoofing in the Baltic Sea isn't just unsafe. The interference with aircraft and shipping is hurting the regional economy. And it's time for NATO to take action, the head of Sweden's Navy said on Monday. For military purposes, we actually are not as affected because we are not that dependent on GPS. I wonder why. Maybe they're old school. But of course, that makes it an unsecure area. And when uncertainty occurs in an area, the insurance rates increase. So they're even pointing out that this affects the economy as far as when you have an event like this, they're going to charge higher insurance rates for moving within this area. One consequence of an increased number of ships turning off their automatic identification system, making it hard to tell their origin or exactly what they're doing in the Baltic, a phenomenon that Skug Haslam has called ghost shipping. Sounds like a Little Wayne song or something, which is becoming bigger and bigger. Estonian researchers have suggested Russia is behind the GPS interference via electromagnetic warfare capabilities at the Tobol complex at the Russian Oblast of Kaliningrad. Now, I'll go over the map again just to remind folks of where Kaliningrad is and why this is like right in the middle of everything. So if you look at the map, most of you already know all of this, and but as far as those who are geographically challenged, Russia's over here. This is Moscow. This is Belarus. This is UKR down here, Moldova, Georgia, all that. Over here, you have Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. You have Poland. Right here, this little place in the middle, that is a Russian enclave. I think they call it an enclave. But this is Russia right here. So it's kind of like how the U.S. has Alaska and it's completely separate, or Hawaii. But this is a land-based enclave. So this is Russia. They're saying that this Tobol complex, that they are causing huge disruptions in GPS in this whole area. So it's what are they doing? Are they doing it to hide certain things? Are they also doing it because maybe they're possibly bringing things in and trying to confuse all of the systems? I've heard that on X. Certain people think that they're spoofing and doing all these GPS things so they can, by way of night, bring in certain things and store them up in Kaliningrad. I've heard tons of different theories on why it's happening and why, or I've even heard theories that it's not them and that they're just trying to start something with them. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. It feels like something is about to pop. But yeah. And then Quintress, thank you again. Thank you, Grace, for you too. Thank you, Jellyfish Spawn. Says cities in Texas heard explosions a few hours ago. Tons of power outages, but authorities say it was just fireworks. Anyone else know anything? Jellyfish Spawn, this is the kind of stuff that is great because we have a lot of folks in Texas and somebody else might actually know. So again, Jellyfish Spawn says cities in Texas, and you're saying it plural, as in multiple cities, heard explosions a few hours ago, tons of power outages, but authorities say it was just fireworks. Sounds like something we might have to cover tomorrow. Anyone else know anything? That sounds pretty odd to me. And then Sweat and Ministry says Ezekiel 38:39 is looking close. Israel in God's timepiece. Watching Israel is number one thing to do with prophecies. Best to do a call-in for explanation. Sweating them. Next time we do one, you are first on the list. And then Trilicit, thank you. Uncommon News says asteroid 2024 GJ2 impact Atlantic tomorrow. Quote, Wormwood? How big is it, though? Is it? I know every day they're covering something that's the size of an empire building, the size of a megalodon. They always come up with some crazy thing to compare to size. Size of a football field, size of a bread box, size of a Empire State Building sized bread box megalodon. I can't even keep up. And then Neil Nelson, thank you for the massive support. Thank you for supporting Independent. Neil, thank you for sticking around for years now. Along with Bible Talk 777, social media is gov run with figureheads and stories about starting in a garage. Buffett on Info 3 letter went after woman for JB memes. Buffett for Info 3 letter went after, oh, I get what you're saying. Went after woman for JB memes. Yeah, I know. It's insane. You can, now they can rage you for the wrong meme. It's crazy. Yeah, it's not getting better, that's for sure. And then Russia aborts heavy lift rocket launch second day in a row. Dex, I wonder if there's any kind of sabotage going on here. You never know, right?
Yeah, you never know. But Space One launched a rocket that would have made the company Japan's first private firm to put a satellite into orbit. But the Russia's second attempt to test launch a new heavy lift rocket from Far East Space Complex was aborted on Wednesday. So you've got a lot of things happening, but apparently Russia just can't get this thing off the ground. The launch of the Angara A5 rocket from Vostchny spaceport was canceled about 2 minutes before its planned time. The state news agency had said the cause of the failure was of the pressurization system on the oxidizer tank of the central block of the rocket. Now, these are a relatively new heavy lifter rocket. The first attempt on Tuesday also failed because the automatic safety system registered a flaw in the same oxidizer tank pressurization. The launch was to be the fourth launch for this new version, and it's been developed to replace, I guess, their Proton rocket, which was before. Now, we always pay attention to launches, especially space launches from Russia, and especially big systems like anything that requires the heavy rocket or something like this, because you never know what they're putting up. If it's one thing if it's just their normal Suez launches that go to the ISS, that's one thing. But when you see some of the military actions or some of the non-disclosed actions that happen, it makes you wonder. We did have that one launch back in early March, I think it was, or right at the end of February, that caused our Congress people to come out and say, wait a minute, something's actually happening in space, and we need to know what's going on. We think there's a potential nuclear device threat in space. Now, they came out and said, don't worry, it hasn't happened yet, but who knows? The timing was so suspect with a launch of a classified vehicle from Russia.
And our side responded with another classified launch from DoD, Department of Defense launch. And here's the thing:
within days, and it wasn't even a planned launch. It came out of nowhere.
Yeah, nobody until it was launched, nobody knew about it. And here's a side kind of note: isn't it creepy that all of these countries are launching not only big rockets, but massive rockets up into space? What the heck are they doing? Are they all racing to get huge rockets that can take massive amounts of people into space? Are they trying to load something up onto the moon? With this, after that warning, they said, we need to declassify this now. This was the second failure. What if this was sabotaged? Or what if this was, they were trying to put an actual nuke up and something happened and last second it failed? With this, or they're all trying to come up with these big rockets? When you look at the big friggin' rocket that Elon is doing, does that not put in the back of your head that like they're trying to get off the planet? It's weird to me. He wants to get 1 million people by 2030 onto Mars. I get being multiplanetary, but why the short deadline? Like that's not even in his lifetime. He could set it out 30 years. Why is it so sped up? What is actually going on that all of these countries are launching? In China, remember the 3 rockets that the booster part of it actually came back down and they tracked it all over the country? all over the world. They said, oh, these things are coming down. They said those 3 big rockets that China launched up, they didn't even care. They didn't even care about the part that came down. It was so massive that they were worried about it hitting anywhere in the world. That was supposedly to launch the 3 pieces to their ISS, or to their space station, which, by the way, now China has, and they've said is basically a weapon in space. Now, Russia's launching some massive, massive rockets. I mean, these are gigantic. To put in perspective, this is a big garage door, and this rocket makes it look like it's, the tiniest part of the bottom piece of the rocket. The very tip of it is the size of a garage door. So what are they launching? What are they trying to do? And are we lucky that they just failed again? Or are they all loading up on the moon and something's about to happen to Earth and they're going to be sitting in their moon mansions? And Zuckerberg's like, no, I'm going to go down with the ship in his $270 million bunker. Like, no, I actually don't like flying, so I'm going to take my luck. I'm going to watch Friends down in the bunker. Sounds fun. And again, with all of the craziness and the tracking and tracing, and of course with all of the different threats that are out there from space and everything else, there's actually a great product that you can put your devices in, your smaller devices or even your phone. If you either don't want to be tracked or traced, or you want a good Faraday bag that you can put your devices in, Off-Grid actually makes all of them. Make sure to go over to marfuglenews.com/offgrid. They have everything from backpacks. Their backpack's awesome. It has multiple pockets that hold everything from your keys, your cell phones, your laptops, your tablets, and even more. And they are, again, law enforcement quality Faraday bags. They're really, 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 really high quality as far as they're going to last a very, very long time. And no one is going to be able to access your devices. They have everything from key fob holders to wallets that actually, trifold wallets that turn into a cell phone holder that then no one can be able to know when you have a cell phone there. Once you put your phone in, all signal stops. That means in and out. So if you don't like people tracking where you're going, this is a good option. Also, they have the duffel bag, which you can put. The duffel bag's cool because basically it's just one big Faraday bag. You can put all of your devices and everything into that and protect it, and even put a go bag in it as well. Go to marfuglenews.com/offgrid and make sure to use the code Marfoogle. All right, and California on alert as San Andreas Fault hints at a quake. Now, they talk about Parkfield, I believe it is. It's the earthquake capital of the world. And they say that they're getting odd measurements. One scientist is even predicting that they think that there is going to be some sort of tremor or earthquake this year. Now, this person's not predicting the big one this year. They're hoping actually that it releases some of the pressure this year. They believe by the measurements, and again, they've been trying to study on how to predict these earthquakes. It's a science that just still is way behind. Some believe that this science is actually already perfected almost by people like Dutch. Dutch has a pretty crazy high number of predicting these things, but it's not accepted by a lot of different folks. But now they do have these systems that do give a few seconds warning, the shake, what is it? It's called shake alert, things like that, where people actually did get warnings a couple seconds before. Meanwhile, Taiwan, I believe, got warning like 45 minutes after or something. But there's a lot of, no, it wasn't. It was New York or something, New Jersey, I think, that recent earthquake. We've been having a lot of weird earthquakes, by the way. A lot of odd earthquakes in weird places, in various places, diverse places. Go ahead, Dex.
No, I was just saying you were correct. It was the New York one, because Taiwan got the early warning and New York got the 45 minute. By the way, we already had one. Be careful.
Yeah. So Taiwan got a warning like seconds before or something, but New York was like, oh yeah, 45 minutes ago there was a quake. Like, what good is that? So the shake alert system, if it does work on the West Coast, which they haven't fully adapted it everywhere, but it would be pretty crazy if you even have 5 seconds before you could. That means that it takes 5 seconds to get to a doorway. It takes 5 seconds to get away from power lines. It takes 5 seconds to get away from windows. It takes 5 seconds to get into a triangle structure. I mean, like they've said things like even if you have if you get between bookshelves or a triangle structure is one of the strongest structures. There's all sorts of different advice that folks give you, but 5 seconds is a huge deal, let alone 10 seconds or 30 seconds. When the Cascadia subduction zone goes, they're worried about a boomerang earthquake. This system might even be able to tell you after it goes down the line, they're worried about it actually coming back up. Like it's ripping and then it will re-rip all the way back up. Which it's going to take time to go from Canada to California, and then it would take time again to go back up. So if you had warning, if you're next to a building, say you were right next to a building that looked a whole lot like the Leaning Tower of Taiwan over there, you could get 20, 30 feet away. If you're right by power lines, that could make the difference of you getting hit by a power line or being near open wires, or being 50, 100 feet away. Heck, if you run fast enough, a football field away. You could be out in an open field somewhere, and that would be a whole lot better than being by a brick building or something like that. But yeah, they're on alert, and one gentleman even says that they believe because of the measurements and the stuff that's been going on since 2021, they even believe that they're hoping that there's a release of pressure soon. If San Andreas goes off, it could very well cause the Cascadia to go off. We're talking about the whole West Coast destroyed. I'm not even exaggerating. Go look it up for yourself. If Cascadia and San Andreas go off at the same time, either one separately is insane. Cascadia is worse than San Andreas. But San Andreas is thing of legend because the whole thing hasn't popped since modern day civilization, or at least since we've had these huge metropolises with modern civilization built with millions of people packed all around it. When it does go off, it's going to cause time bomb after time bomb to go off. There's also smaller fault lines alongside this, and scientists absolutely know as a fact that a big fault line or even a small fault line shaking up could trigger either a big one, or a big one could trigger a small one. Heck, they even know that volcanoes, say if a volcano goes off, that can trigger an earthquake, or vice versa. An earthquake can trigger a volcano. And we are in the Ring of Fire. There's volcanoes all the way down the West Coast. It's kind of crazy how many volcanoes we have on the West Coast. So yeah, this is something that I hope that if you're in the West Coast, you have a plan. If there's an earthquake, in an event like San Andreas, it's not going to be like the movie San Andreas with The Rock, but it would be closer to. It could be something as bad as like how it ends on Netflix, like that movie where they show all just gray covered in dust, almost like the bottom of the 2001 event in New York. When you have that many buildings falling down, it's going to be a very dangerous place. At the very least, you should think about getting some sort of mask, because when all of the building materials crumble, especially if you're in Seattle or if you're in a industrial area of California, all of the building materials turn into poisonous mixtures, and you breathe that stuff in, it's going to be really bad. So something like that would be a good thing to have in your kit. Hope people are paying attention. Now, also want to thank you, Scooby-Doo Right. Thank you for hosting, by the way. I appreciate that you are constantly trying to bring new people in, and I do thank you. It's like the only way that we can get people in here, so thank you. It's Vlad the Dad. Thank you. I appreciate that. Says, we saw a fireball shoot overhead in New Jersey early a.m. So that was today, Vlad? That's crazy. Okay. So New Jersey, if you are in New Jersey, if you already put a camera towards the sky, we said this would be a great idea. If you're a Foogle fan, wherever you are, if you have an extra Ring doorbell cam or an extra Wi-Fi cam or something, point it at the sky. If you're in New Jersey and you got video of whatever fireball Vlad Dedad saw, then send it, upload it to YouTube. It's very easy. Just push the plus button on your app and upload it, and then go to marfooglenews.com/playmyvideo. It's a tab on our main website. The website is available down below. And then we'll show it on the show. Domenico Louveris is another great show, you guys. The one and only news you can depend on. Well, thank you from Australia. Hey, thank you, and appreciate that. And thank you for being awesome from down under. And if you want to watch the video, the short video we did over on the San Andreas earthquake, and of course mentioned we read the full article over there, then you just want to click here or the description down below. But you can subscribe and make sure to hit that notifications bell, because that is your agreement with YouTube that you want every notification. Click right here for that Marfoogle News short. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I appreciate you guys. Dex, thank you so much.
Much love. Great job, brother.
It's now time for the shoutro. It's not an outro. It's not a shout-out. It's a shoutro.
Love in springtime. They say she lost her mind. They say she'll be just fine, but they lie. Love in springtime. They say she lost her mind. They say she'll be just fine.